ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, one of the two best anime podcasts on the internet.
And for a small subscription fee of $19.99 per year, you too can become part of the GLORIO Network, home of the hottest and most relevant anime podcasts of the year.
Can we get John Hodgman for that?
I'll put in some phone calls, but yes. So
That would be pretty great.
since our last
Don't actually send us money. We can't.
Oh no,
we can't do anything with it.
No, send us money, please.
Yeah, actually, we have emails.
I take that back. Send us money.
I'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we were alluding to, we since our last episode of the GLORIO Chat, we started a second podcast, or I should say, G and Iro started one, The Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, covering the Legend of Galactic Heroes original OVA. So
yes, the hottest, most relevant show in 2018.
So yeah, you guys have been doing a great job with that. It's a good listen, so check that out. I know you've even inspired me and Marlin to follow along, so we've been watching a couple episodes, and yes.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for the Axe
Yeah.
episode.
So
yeah.
So join
I'm
us.
sorry that
just for anyone that hasn't been following along, there's apparently an episode in the old show where guys just start axe murdering on a spaceship.
Sure.
And it's pretty great.
it's a pretty good look.
So come join us on G and Iro's journey through the Sea of Stars, or whatever you say every week, G.
You got it right.
As much as I tease you guys about the show being dry and boring, it is actually very good. It's a very good show.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, turns out all those people like shouting about it for the past 20 years were maybe onto something.
Yes.
Right.
So maybe there's a reason, but yep. So that's on the same feed as this podcast, of course. So go ahead and check that out. All right. So as for this particular episode, it is time for our mid-season catch-up on the summer 2018 season. A lot of shows we're watching, surprisingly, despite none of them, I think, being particularly great. There's a lot of just good shows to watch, so we'll get into all that. With us on the podcast today, as always, I'm Jel, and oh no, we don't have Iro. Where's Iro?
Oh no!
He's gone.
No!
What am I supposed to do without Iro? I'm panicking.
Without our stalwart, GLORIO member, we are adrift. We are lost.
Yes.
In the sea of
Just cut
podcasting.
So this is actually the first episode without Iro, so he will be missed. But we do have the remnants of Team GLORIO USA here, as you may have heard already. So we have G.
Yo.
And we have Marlin.
Hey, what's up?
And we're going to have to three-man it, because literally every other GLORIO member is busy this week.
Down to the skeleton crew this week.
Yeah, we're going to have to hold down the fort until reinforcements arrive here. So
yeah, you know things are getting bad when the most prominent topic discussed in these chat over the last couple of days are gacha game mechanics. So.
Yeah. I didn't realize that, but you're totally right.
Maybe we'll
we're getting desperate.
Maybe we'll talk about that more on another episode. We'll see. But yeah. Anyway, so as we mentioned, we're going to do our catch up on the summer 2018 season. It's already the midpoint, believe it or not. Time's flying by, etc., etc. And we'll start by talking about, before we get into like the good shows, just the couple shows that we either dropped or are kind of dropping or on the verge of being dropped. And we'll start with Steins Gate Zero. For me personally, I did not even watch any of this second core. Like, I kind of lost track of it at the end of last season with all the new shows coming in, and I never bothered picking it up again. And according to you, Marlin, that's probably a good choice.
Yeah, that's what I did in the beginning, but then I was like, oh, right, you probably want to put that in the roundup for next season. Maybe I should catch up. And, like, the end of the first core wasn't terrible. Like, it actually, like, that wasn't bad. But then this new season started, and like it was frustrating in so many ways. The biggest thing is that, at this point, I said it in the roundup too, but in this point in the original Steins Gate, like the mercenaries came in, they started shooting people up, like stuff got real, and you go to Steins Gate Zero, and at this point in the season, they're having Daru shout "Moe Moe Kyun" in the middle of the street, and having it actually work in romancing some girl to be his future wife, so that they can have Suzuha together.
There were mercenaries in Steins Gate.
Oh yeah, things went
I
down
guess-
in the second half. Yeah,
I never watched Steins Gate, so my base understanding of that show was like, what was it? Which soda was it?
The fake Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Right. It was
Oh,
Dr.
was it?
Pepper, green bananas, and Tutaru, basically.
Right.
Well, that's
The
a good
chicken.
portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the first Steins Gate, like the first half of this show is kind of more lighthearted, and then like all the conspiracy theories that you think the main guy's just making up turn out to be true, and then things start going down in the second half.
So this sequel's kind of following that same format.
Maybe it's in reverse.
Really. There's only really been one time travel
Oh.
thing. They keep bringing time travel up, but yeah, that's kind of part of the problem too, is that they didn't stick with one future tech to base this season off of. Like in the beginning, you thought that they were going to go hard in on the AI, because
right.
they made this AI of Kurisu, like the main heroine from the original show, and then in the middle of the season, he just like stops talking to it and it just kind of goes away, and he actually gets teleported to another time, because I guess in the timeline of the prequel, like Russia and the United States are trying to make time machines, and so I guess one of them must have actually made a time machine, and
which causes World War
like,
III.
it's really
et cetera,
muddying
et
the
cetera.
waters.
Yes, but
yeah, World War III. There were really good parts of the last season, but the first 3 episodes of the new one were just completely worthless. There would always be these huge sections with like them going to Ferris, who is already the worst character in that show, having her talk in her weird cat speak, and like have her general trait of just being rich enough to somehow get rid of all their problems. It's really bizarre.
It sounds like really interesting television.
Yeah. No, I have to admit they did. I think when they really lost me was when they jumped back to the old timeline, and I realized, oh, this show used to be like much better than this. And then
Right.
I didn't realize it until like they went back and basically the original series, like the heart and soul of the original series was Okabe and Kurisu's relationship, right? And him being the crazy mad scientist guy, and her being the tsundere genius, whatever, and that was like the heart of the show, and that's gone in Zero, and I didn't really notice it until they went back. I'm like, oh right, that's why the show is good. Yeah, it's not really good anymore.
Right.
That and the
affirmation that the original series was actually good. That I wasn't.
They ditched the AI romance for conventional time travel again, and that lost me as well.
Ooh.
Yeah,
And some romance with
Bring
the
back
woman
the
that-
robot.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't even a robot. It was just an app on his phone.
Yeah, it was just
Fine.
it was
Bring
like,
back
her-
the phone.
Scarlett Johansson.
Oh,
Joaquin
yeah, one of those
Phoenix,
things.
or whatever that was.
Look. We have the technology. Okay, fine. Anyways, my actual question is, I guess based on what you've seen, like, what was the intent of this sequel? Like, was it trying to be like a meaningful follow-up to the original Steins Gate, or is this kind of more just like a weird optional spin-off, if that makes sense?
So what I thought it was going to be was, I thought they were going to basically tell the story of the bad timeline that like goes into World War III, that causes like future Okabe to send, like there's this character that's sent into the past in an actual time machine instead of just done like by the brainwave like Okabe does. And so I thought they were just going to tell that story. Like they were going to progressively get into the future and stuff like that. But it's just all been in the present day. And it's kind of had to do with that story, but like I said, in the most terrible ways, like having Daru like shack up with who is supposed to be the mother of the girl that gets sent back in time, and it's just the dumbest thing ever. Or Suzuha, like that's their daughter, like having a flashback about how, like, during the middle of a war zone, she just like shouts to her mom, and then a drone guns her down in like just the most hilariously like hammy scene I've ever seen in like years.
Yeah,
So I don't know what they were doing.
it felt I guess to answer your question, it felt like they were trying to do something, and doing something meaningful and like different in the beginning. Like it felt like it was a nice standalone story, and then like somewhere in the middle there, they just started like jumping all over the place, and it's like, all right, you guys really don't know what you're doing. That's kind of what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of disappointing, but hey, I guess we can still have the original series and pretend this didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, with time shenanigans, it probably never did happen. So,
yeah,
technically, I think that's correct. I don't know. I lost track of all the.
That was the really dumb thing too in this, like the episode that I keep harping on about, is she tries to pull a Back to the Future thing, saying that she's disappearing from the past because his dad isn't getting together with his mom, and so she's not getting created in the future. But they already established in Steins Gate, the original show, that that's just not how time works in their world. You know, when you jump back in time, you don't accidentally erase yourself from history.
It becomes a different timeline or whatever, right? Or something, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway.
So it's
that's a little disappointing, but you know, we had our good times with the original. We can move on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next show on our list, G, you have claimed that you're still watching this. I dropped it around episode 2.
I am.
I don't know, Marlin. Are you still watching?
Yeah, that was around the same time that I dropped it.
Yeah. So it's Grand Blue, or Grand Blue Dreaming, as it's called on Amazon. The show about the dirtbag frat boy diver guys getting drunk and being horrible people to each other. How's it been going, G? Because like I said, we didn't watch past like episode 2, I think.
So I've actually still been generally enjoying it, to be honest. I think more than the way I'll put it is this way: is, for better or worse, the ratio of frat boy dirtbag comedy to unironic diving anime or scuba diving anime or what have you kind of varies from episode to episode. And I think, for better or worse, the stronger episodes are the ones where the scuba diving basically just exists as the excuse for why all of these people are gathered in the same place.
Right.
And the episodes where they focus more on the actual diving, I think, kind of suffer because the show doesn't really have the props to pull it off. But I think more than anything that weirdly impresses me about the show is its bizarre sense of continuity that I feel like a lot of anime comedies don't have. You know, I think we've all watched enough anime comedies to know that for the most part, episodes are kind of standalone, right? They're episodic. You know, it's
right.
You know, this week it's this thing, that next week it's an entirely different skit, basically. But Grand Blue has this really almost impressive internal consistency where every week's plot is the result of last week's consequences. The things they do, that they play for jokes, that they play for laughs, actually have long-lasting consequences that continue to haunt them in the next episode. And then whatever they do in that episode to address last week's fuck-ups, those fuck-ups come to haunt them in the next episode. It's super weird looking at it and realizing, every fun standalone incident that they're getting into, whether it's a mixer or an event at the student festival, they're doing that because of something they horribly fucked up in the prior episode. And I don't know, for an anime comedy, it's almost kind of admirable.
I think we're actually kind of seeing some of that this season, because you're right, usually that's not the case, but we see some of that in Chio's School Road.
Yeah, that's true.
Where they had some plot lines, like the bloody butterfly thing.
Yeah.
Or
Asobi Asobase too. Or
yeah.
Asobase. with the girl from the occult club.
Yep. So they had some of that carrying from episode to episode, which is kind of surprising. So maybe that's just a thing this season.
We're witnessing the rise of the narrative-driven dirtbag comedy.
Yeah, because those all kind of fall in the same category.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
But,
I think you were right though, because I started losing interest as soon as they started even remotely touching some of the kind of unironically serious bits of, you know, I think it started with like the girl he likes, and they tried to have a serious moment with her, like, oh, she really just wants you to get into diving or whatever, and I'm like, I don't want to watch that in this show.
I will say,
Remind me if I'm wrong.
Oh, go ahead.
She is his cousin, right?
Oh yeah, but it's Japan.
Yes, that is correct.
They are cool with that in Japan.
Oh, okay.
You know, when your birth rate is as low as it is, sometimes you have to, you got to dig a little bit deeper in the bench.
I mean, technically, you know, I don't want to get into this. I don't want to get into the genetic conversation with that.
Let's not.
Let's,
we
Grand Blue.
Yeah.
Grand Blue. How's that going?
All right. So, sorry, G.
Look, I'll just leave it at. I think overall, I'm still personally enjoying it. I think the last 3-4 episodes they have gotten further and further away from the diving. So, in a sense, I do think it's gotten better, but it is pretty one note in terms of the comedy. Like, I enjoy it because, you know, as somebody who was kind of a dirtbag in college, you know, it's a fun mirror. But if you're not into just how are these guys going to be totally shitty to each other this week, you know, it's not much more than that. But that said, within that niche of how are these guys shitty to each other each week, I will admit they come up with some pretty ingenious ways for these guys to be shitty to each other each episode, and it's kind of impressive.
I probably would have kept watching it if I wasn't watching so many other things, but
yeah, I was about to say the same.
Something had to go. Something had to give. So, all right. Well, speaking of things that have to give, I am real close to dropping Revue Starlight, which I've never actually enjoyed, but it's so interesting.
Stop watching it. Why are you
it's
watching
so
it?
Because that transformation sequence is so cool.
Yeah, and you know what I did? I went on YouTube and I watched it, and now I'm done.
That might be what it comes down to.
I mean, look, you know, because Zig isn't here to defend himself, I can just go ahead and say, spoilers, like the only actually good part of most Ikuhara anime are the super badass transformation sequences with the really good music.
Yeah.
Hey,
so
I also have declared that Penguin Drum is the greatest anime of the 2010s. So,
oh yeah, I guess
I would also have to take some umbrage with that. But that aside, this show is not good. And I was going to talk about. So the last episode I watched was episode 5. And there's going to be another one. We're recording on Friday this week, so I'm not able to catch the one airing tomorrow. So there'll be another episode before the podcast goes out. But the last one I saw was 5. And it kind of was a very good example of why this show is so like extremely frustrating, because it keeps flirting with greatness, and I think that's why so many people like are tricking themselves into liking it. And in this episode, I guess the biggest problem, even beyond the idol thing, because there are people that like idol shows, not my thing, but it's a thing that people like, whatever. The bigger problem is it's not even really a good idol show. It's like it's trying to do this like kind of weird artsy thing with the battles, but there's no weight or consequences or like danger to any of it. Mm-hmm. So like they'll go to this like creepy, you know, underground fighting ring thing, and you know they'll have their cool fight or whatever, and when the person loses, just everything is exactly the same the next day. They can even fight again if they want, if they're, you know, assigned the next night or whatever. So like,
how did Uteno work?
I
forget.
Sorry,
like, I haven't actually ever seen Uteno. So wasn't that just he just fights a bunch of guys in the same way?
It's been a long time, and again, my only actual memories of Uteno are
they got knocked out of the running to be for Rose Bride. So they didn't die or anything, but they were no longer in the contest. Whereas this one, like literally, it's just like practice or something. I don't know.
And like if I recall, some of the losers in Utena, stuck around in some capacity, but
right, because they still had to go to school and stuff. But
yes,
that was in a
yeah. So in this show, like, there's no, and it's like, so then what are we even like doing all this for? And there might be consequences later, but for the time being, anyway, there isn't. And in this in this episode 5, they started to kind of touch into like this weird, creepy area that I would kind of want the show to go, because like the show is about, or the episode was about the main girl's like friend who's like also her stalker and is obsessed with her, and they kind of dip into like her feelings of jealousy because the main girl's old friend came back and now they're super gay together, and she's jealous and feels like she's getting left out. And so she starts like, getting hot and bothered after she picks up the girl's sweaty towel, or like she tries to secretly take her water bottle out of her locker so she can put her lips on it, I guess. I don't think there was any water in it. And yeah, so they start to like touch into that like creepy jealousy thing. And like when she has her fight at the end of the episode, she has to fight the main girl, and like all her attacks are like weirdly comedy based, but she also has like a battle mace and she's trying to like smash the girl's head in as she's like laughing and like smiling, and it's like really creepy and kind of entertaining. And I'm like, okay, I can get into this. And then after the fight is over and she loses, though, everybody goes back upstairs and they have snacks together, and they're like, hey, we really do need you. And she's like, you're right, I should go, I need to work hard and shine for myself. And I'm like, that and then it just turns back into the idol show again, and that pretty much sums up everything wrong with the show in like one episode.
So it's like he learned all the transformation abilities from, because this isn't the guy who made Penguin.
No, it's
right?
not Ikuhara himself.
Disciple of his.
It's one of his proteges or whatever.
Yeah,
like a protege.
Yeah.
I think yes, that is maybe. Having only watched the transformation sequence in the fight of like the first episode, like, yeah, like the thing that really strikes me, like the thing that is actually kind of astonishing to me hearing you talk about it, Jel, is how segregated the school stuff and the fighting stuff is. Like, I think the show could potentially be super interesting if the underground idol fights started to affect the day-to-day social interactions of the school itself. If it had a bearing on the social pecking order of the students, or it started to if both started to bleed into each other in unexpected ways.
Okay, wait.
But to hear that they're like completely divorced from each other is just
pretty much.
At some point, then I ask why. Like, why have either why have the school stuff or have the fighting stuff? Like, why have both of them if they don't interact with each other at all?
Yeah,
Here's what you do.
Go ahead, Marlin.
They have their uniforms, right? What if they put stars on the uniforms, and the stars told you you had more stars, that meant you were more powerful, and they all had to fight one girl, and by the end of the show, they just have to fight clothing itself. I think that would be way better. What about you?
Sounds vaguely familiar. I would probably.
I could get into that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it would need a certain touch. Perhaps a different studio, for example.
I kind of want to see that now.
You know what, though, G? I would watch Ikuhara's Kill la Kill, if we're being honest.
Oh, that would be
that would be something. I don't know.
I feel like
for sure.
I feel like the transformation sequence would get way better, but I fear you would lose
it would be
the rest of that show's personality.
It would be a very different. Well, it would have a personality. It would be a very different.
Sure, it would be its own
very different
super gay personality. Yes. But.
Oh, come on! As if Kill la Kill wasn't gay already. All right. So, yeah, that show continues to be frustrating because parts are there. It could be good. And I think it's just a fight between I feel like the company that is funding it wanted them to make an idol show, and the people making it want to make something cool, and they're just kind of clashing, and it's not working in either direction. So that's kind of unfortunate. All right. So let's move on to the good shows that we are still watching, and for the time being plan on continue watching. And so these are all kind of being vaguely airing order here. So let's start with Lupin.
Hell yeah.
Continuing from last season. Still pretty good.
Spoilers, yes it is. Holy shit.
Yeah, I just caught up with it myself.
Oh yeah, nice. Like to the most recent episode. Nice. Yeah, I think I don't know if I said it just to the chatter on the podcast itself. I feel like I might have said earlier that Lupin was kind of the JoJo of the season, where it was good, but in that like kind of predictable, comfortable way. But
I would agree.
Isn't that really My Hero Academia?
Yes, I feel like it's more My Hero Academia at this point. I feel like I kind of take that back, because with the last couple of episodes, I feel like Lupin Part 5 has really solidified itself as just a really excellent show and a really excellent entry in the Lupin franchise.
I mean, every one of the main 5-episode storylines has been fantastic so far, and the last
and I
few
think all of the
shorts,
one-offs, have also been very good in their own ways. Like back to back, we just had, like, I shit you not, the last 2 episodes of Lupin III Part 5 were Lupin needs to take a shit, but the bathroom is out of order.
Yeah.
And
that's accurate.
And the follow-up episode to that was Lupin has to play a chess game against a psychotic multimillionaire in the middle of a desert canyon, while the 2 chess players have their chosen sniper champion of choice battle it out amongst the ruins on both sides of the canyon.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
And it's so good. Like, it's so good in that, like, really excellent spy fiction way, where none of the things it's doing are super original. You know, the sniper episode, or the sniper chess episode that I just mentioned, the twist is kind of predictable, and what Jigen says to the other sniper at the end is very good. It's very good in that Metal Gear Solid 1 sort of way.
But I always love sniper battles, though. Like, it reminded me a lot of that episode in was it Second Gig, a standalone complex?
Oh, yes, with Saito's sniper battle with the Major. Yeah. Yes, it's sniper battles are like maybe one of my favorite type of gun battles, just because so much of it is like that good ass mind games shit. And yeah, and I guess that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't say that necessarily Lupin is, rewriting the record. I mean, it is doing that in some ways. Like, as we talked about, back when we first started watching it, when we have episodes like Lupin steals Bitcoin, it is totally doing things in new and interesting ways. But I think more than anything, what Part 5 is really doing for me is solidifying its reputation amongst the franchise's canon, because when Blue Jacket Lupin was first revealed, I think people were not suspicious or skeptical necessarily, but it was the first new Lupin jacket color we had seen in a while. And for those unfamiliar with Lupin, the color of Lupin's jacket is kind of very much an intentional statement by its creators that this is a new generation, this is a new style of Lupin III. And
like the classic one you would see on Adult Swim was always red, because it was from, I think, like the first couple of seasons, and it was very much more like James Bond in like the capers and like.
Yes. Whereas like you have Green Jacket Lupin, kind of made iconic by Miyazaki's Castle of Cagliostro, where it kind of leans more into Lupin the Gentleman Thief kind of thing, and technically, the Lupin in Takeshi Koike's first Lupin thing, the woman called Fujiko Mine was Green Jacket Lupin, but you kind of start to see the beginning of the creation, the ideas that go into Blue Jacket Lupin, with both the Takeshi Koike OVAs and the prior Lupin TV series. And I think that prior TV series, what was it, like 2014, 2015?
Sometime around
I
there.
totally forget.
Wasn't that long ago.
I think that one really soured people on Blue Jacket Lupin. Like, people were like, oh no, that cool noir gritty Blue Jacket Lupin style that Takeshi Koike created was actually something only he could pull off, and nobody else can do it right. But then with this new one, Part 5, I think it's a very strong, very confident statement that, no, we can make Blue Jacket Lupin work. We can make this more gritty, kind of grounded noir style work super well and play really well to a 2018 audience. And
I really do like just how much they've been able to integrate, like modern technology to show, like how the world of thieving would change because of the way the world has changed. And they got into it in the last long form story with this clash of tradition and technology, and how global companies could totally affect how countries work just as much as the CIA could nowadays.
Right. The last arc, which was basically just Lupin III cross Ace Attorney 6.
I mean, that does sound up your guys' alley.
But it was yes, very good. I'm enjoying it a lot, and I don't know. I guess 2018 has been such a strong year for anime, and there was a part of me that was ready to make that hard choice of, well, Lupin Part 5, you've been good, but you're not top 5 good. But with the most recent episodes,
think about it.
Depending on how they stick the landing, it's going to be a very difficult top 5 to order this year.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that they managed to pull it together, because I remember there were some concerns early on with the format of jumping around to the different jackets, but
it's worked super well. Even those other jacket stories, the good ones, really they're all, the only really bad one was the Pink Jacket Lupin episode at the very beginning.
Right, which
I think
unfortunately soured
all of the other,
yeah.
it was really kind of making the first, kind of making a poor first impression. But all the other ones have been like really fun palate cleansers almost. Like after 4 or 5 episodes of, kind of gritty noir Lupin dealing in like political intrigue and, kind of dealing more with like spy agencies than robbing people, having these like one-off Green Jacket, Red Jacket Lupin episodes where it's just like Lupin has to race a ghost or something.
Lupin has to be Sherlock Holmes for a day.
Oh my god, that episode is so good. Holy shit. Like, I never thought I wanted to see Lupin fucking turn a new leaf and become a detective until now, but holy shit, he makes it work so well.
Yeah, they really made it work. And they flipped my expectations. I so thought that it was just going to be that, like, so it's like a
it's a locked room mystery.
Yeah, locked room mystery basically. And they were showing these 3 guys. It's like, oh, it's definitely one of them. And then there was this maid character, and I was like, oh, it's for sure the maid character, right? But
like that's the obvious play, right?
Right. But they did good with their expectations, and
no, they totally do. I think in general that kind of gets to it with Lupin the Third Part 5 is they're very it speaks to the creator's knowledge of Lupin the Third and spy fiction and that kind of umbrella genre in general, and knowing not only just the expectations of its audience, but also when is it okay to indulge in those old tropes, and when is it fun to subvert them.
Nice. All right. Well, again, glad to hear that that's still going strong. So, speaking of shows that are, well, maybe not going strong is not a good segue for this one. Gundam Build Divers is another show that has been continuing from last season. Is there anything, G, that you need to say about this that has not already been said?
I don't know, man. Fucking this show just, it tires me out thinking about it, because even if my expectations have now been properly managed for this show, I'm not gonna say it's like Darling the Franxx bad or anything like that. But Build Divers is nowhere near that bad. It doesn't deserve to be painted with that damning of a brush. But it's I guess the way I think Iro put it that I'm going to just echo here is that Gundam Build Divers is at the point where it's beyond not being a good Gundam show. It's also now not even a good kids show either. Like it kind of indulges in the kids show genre's kind of worst habits. The boring invincible main character with completely flat motivations, the supporting cast who literally exist to do nothing but just support the main character.
So what are you saying? This is Gundam Build Try?
Try was look,
Digimon, right?
I will say this: Try
people out there.
Oh, were you?
Or sorry, not Try.
Digimon Try. That's the only Try.
Well, I thought that was the name of the second season, right? Where they?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
No. Marlin's making a reference to
TRI, not TRY. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Gundam Build Fighters Try.
I wasn't quite sure, right, whether
Carry
Marlin
on,
was making
folks.
a reference to Digimon Try.
I've derailed the conversation. Carry on, folks.
No, because the thing is, like, Build Fighters Try was a bad Gundam Build Fighters show, but it was still a competent kids show in the sense that, like,
it did
that
have
show
the
was
guy
not a
that
good
was just
Gundam
completely
show.
invincible, though. Even though
it
played Gundam Build Fighters,
right? It definitely, believe me, I have a lot of problems with Try, but in comparison, Divers is on a whole nother level of bad. It's just that the difference is my expectations were appropriately, managed this time around.
Right.
But it's a thing of like even Divers is just so it's not even like offensively bad. It's just so bland and by the numbers that it has me even looking back towards Try and saying, that Tryon fight was really cool. Like some of these fights were pretty badass.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Divers doesn't even have that much going for it. Even the episodes that are like held up as like, oh, this is the serious fight episode. Even those fights are not that good. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about it because at the end of the day, this is a kids show. But it really kind of speaks to, I think, Sunrise really losing grasp of what made the original Gundam Build Fighters work so well. And at this point, Gundam,
if they even realized it, as if they even realized it at all. I mean,
yes, I think the way I could put it is when Gundam Build Fighters was first announced, everybody was scared that it was going to be the most fucking blatant, cheap, shitty cash-in that had no connection to the franchise and to itself and existed purely to just shill a new line of toys. And when it turned out to be like a genuinely good kids show and even a genuinely good Gundam show, it really caught a lot of people off guard.
Shill for a bunch of toys, but still, it wasn't.
And also shill for toys, but in a way that felt, not as devious. I'd say Gundam Build Divers is what the worst case scenario was for the original Gundam Build Fighters. It is the completely flat, soulless, cash-in that just has really nothing original going for it.
Yeah. Well, the first one, it was selling toys with like passion, like
right.
It's like a celebration of how much we love Gunpla or whatever.
Right, because like they're not even building the Gunpla anymore, right? Since it's a VR world.
It's in a fucking MMO. They're like
defeats the entire purpose of the series to me.
Yeah, like very like weird like niggling thing that only a weird fan like me is going to make. But in the original Gundam Build Fighters, when they actually built the toys and then they put them on the fucking Yu-Gi-Oh table that magically brought them to life, there was that drama of like, oh man, this is my actual Gunpla model, the thing I've spent days and weeks and months pouring all of my time into. And
right, and like
when it gets destroyed or hurt, it's like you feel for it because of the level of craftsmanship you've put into it.
Mm-hmm.
And now now that they still build the Gunpla technically, but now that they put it into a fucking MMO, it doesn't fucking matter. Like your Gunpla could get totally shot to shit, and like there's no drama, there are no stakes.
Yeah.
Even all right, so real quick, just for the people who have watched the show, so they get this, but the most 2 episodes ago, they had what you could call the Fellini fight equivalent in Gundam Build Divers, where the main character kind of squared off against the older, mentor slash rival character that had been, there for the main character since the beginning. And they finally, clash against each other in what's supposed to be like, this big, climactic moment. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because none of the stakes are there, none of the character investment is there, and the fight itself is not that good. In fact, the fight literally cuts to a fucking slideshow for like 10 seconds all of a sudden out of nowhere. Like it suddenly shifts into like a montage of panning stills that is so blatant that I wonder what is going on, on the production side of that show. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Really, I'm just talking in circles here. Long story short, Gundam Build Divers is not a very good show.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's probably not a surprise at this point, but things have not changed. All right. Well, moving along, let's talk about Banana Fish.
To another show that I'm like,
Finally, a show I don't have to talk about.
Whew. There's a lot to unpack with Banana Fish.
Is there?
yeah, you've been talking about a lot of weird stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm still debating whether I enjoy it on any level. Once they got it took them a couple episodes to kind of get the main crew together, and once they kind of got together and now they're on this like cross country search for Banana Fish, it's kind of interesting. But man, this show does not.
Wait, there's an actual banana fish?
Well, they think so. Nobody really knows what it is yet, but it's kind of like the MacGuffin of the show.
Is this like some fucking One Piece shit where like when they hung Al Capone at the gallows, he said, "You can have my fortune, but I left it all in banana fish."
It's like
that would be pretty
well,
great.
what it appears to be is some kind of like designer drug that also secretly makes people murderous and
sweet,
go
super
crazy.
drugs.
Wait, so they're
Hell yeah.
looking for that?
Well, that's what it appears to be right now, but at some point somebody else thought basically they're looking for it because like when the main guy's Ash brother died, like that was his only clue to figure out who killed him or made him go crazy, so that he ended up dying or whatever. I don't want to get into all the details, but basically it's like almost like a revenge story, and that's their clue is how it works. But yeah, this show does not pull any punches, and I'm kind of shocked. I'm not shocked that the things that happen in the manga, because like anything can happen in a manga, but I am shocked that this is a television anime, because there's been some really hard stuff.
Yeah, you
I mean,
how like a lot of abuse, like
how
child
hard are we
abuse
talking?
too, right?
Yeah, so like I'm trying to think. In the first couple episodes, we watch a child get graphically murdered on camera. They talk extensively about Ash's childhood, which is full of sexual abuse, and
yeah, I did remember
like
that
they
part
don't
from the first episode.
like. I don't want to say they graphically talk about it, but they explain pretty clearly what was done to him. There's a lot of like he got involved in child pornography amongst other things. And they at one point they play one of the movies in the background. They don't like show it, but it's like, okay, that's pretty
that's really
pretty
gross.
harsh. At one point Ash gets raped in prison, and they don't show that on camera, but they show the guy like finding him beat up in the library after he got raped by a bunch of dudes in prison. Yeah, stuff like that happens fairly often, on top of the normal, R-rated violence stuff. A lot of people getting shot and whatnot. So again, I'm not shocked that would come out of a 1980s manga, but the fact that it's in a television anime is pretty shocking to me. And
well, I suppose my question then, Jel, is does all this shocking imagery, does all the stuff the narrative do, does it do it in service of the narrative, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like, does it work within the context of the story they're telling?
Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, and maybe that's the biggest problem. Because like I mentioned, I think the last time we talked about it, I don't remember if it was on the podcast or if I wrote about it, but the show is constantly seems to be struggling to find the balance between being like a, hyper violent, pulpy grindhouse film type of thing versus like actual serious like crime story. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think it's unfortunate. I think some of the worst moments, and that all those things I mentioned, they don't happen every episode. So that there was a stretch where a lot of those things all happened in one stretch that was like really shocking to me. But most of the time, it's not quite that bad. But I feel like a lot of those things were just for shock value, and not like it's one thing if you're going to bring up child pornography if like you are trying to raise awareness to an issue or something like that. But like no, they just want like you to know that Ash had this shocking, messed up past, and that's why he's, is the way that he is or whatever. And
right, like it almost sounds to me like when somebody is like trying to write an original character for the first time, and they're asking themselves, okay, how do I really punch up their backstory? How do I make it super dramatic? Oh, I know. They were part of a child pornography ring as a kid.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the thing. Is like, I'm obviously not saying you can't do these kind of stories in fiction, right? But I don't know. I guess that's the thing. I only watched the first episode, so I can't comment on it. But it sounds like it's not pulling the kind of weight it should in a story like this.
And I don't know, maybe this is just something I've been thinking, but it almost seems to me like if this was a story where this was like a woman who had been abused since she was a child and she was getting raped, like I feel like we would be decrying it to the hills. Like we wouldn't be talking about it like this because it just doesn't seem appropriate. I don't know.
I mean, the way Jill's talking, it sounds like it's, even if it is a man in this position, it's still
there are lots of
telling a good story, right?
And I mean, there are lots of stories where they add rape to a woman's backstory to make it more tragic, but rarely is it, I guess, this graphic where we're getting a lot of the details of what was done to him, and it's like, there's a line, and like I'm not trying to be prudish or anything here, but there's a line where it's just not necessary anymore. It's very rare that you would ever have to do that unless, like I said, you're trying to actually tackle the topic and the problem at hand, and that's not what they're doing.
Right. I mean,
it's just like an extra layer of bad things that happened to him so that you try to understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, like the way I feel about like gratuity in general is gratuity exists because sometimes just describing an act is not enough, right? Like sometimes gratuity is necessary to communicate the violence of an act or the impact of an act, but oftentimes you go too far with it, and then all that gratuity exists to do is probably, for better or worse, titillate somebody's preferences of sorts.
Yeah,
like at some point
I could see some of that being a thing in here, if we're being honest. But really, I mean, I think I would enjoy it a lot more if it just fully committed to being the pulpy grindhouse stupid show that's also kind of lurking in there. Like, I've talked about Ash Lynx and his 357 Magnum, that his Japanese boyfriend guy that shows up, and he used to be a pole vaulter back in Japan.
Oh my gosh!
This extremely unsubtle metaphors. And he'll only let this Japanese kid touch and shoot his gun. Nobody else can touch it.
They're.
I mean, I would have been totally cool if that was just like they totally committed to that kind of stupidity.
But that's what I mean, right? Like there are parts of this anime that, Jel, when you describe it, sound like fucking like fucking gangster Yuri on Ice.
Right.
That's what it's. I think that's what it's close to being. And if that were the case, I'm like all on board with that.
Right, but then it's just then you also throw in like the fucking highly gratuitous, maybe too far backstory and stuff like that, and I feel like that's where you start to lose it again.
Yeah. So, and it's the other thing I want to mention, and this was pretty surprising to find out. We've talked about how the show used certain language and gay slurs and stuff like that, and I assumed that it was just because the manga was from the 80s, and that probably would have been things they would have said in an 80s manga. But and then that right away is kind of weird because they chose to set the show in present day, which is kind of disappointing to begin with in that regard. But I just wanted to mention, if we can take one more opportunity to dunk on Amazon, I guess a lot of that language is not in the dialogue. So if you listen to the dialogue, they just kind of use like general, kind of they're not even like that, like just like regular insults like stupid or idiot or whatever. And
oh man, are you telling me, Jill, that we are back in the era of super edgy fan subs?
Yes. So the Amazon localization has chosen to take those like kind of much lighter general insults and turn them into gay slurs. Oh
man, this is fucking like fuck you Naruto all over again.
Yes. It's kind of like that, except kind of worse because they're slurs. But
oh man.
Yeah, so once again, Amazon, we have to call them out for their mishandling of their anime properties. But yeah, no, I know the era you're talking about, G, though. Part of me does kind of wish that would come back sometimes. Like,
I'm not saying I wish it came back. I'm just saying it was definitely a memorable aspect.
It was some fond memories
of that time period of fan subbing. Yeah. That when fan subbers felt like they needed that desperate need for anime to be considered a legitimate,
cool and edgy
form of media, and so the only way to do that was to just insert as many slurs and swear words into Naruto or Bleach or One Piece as you could get away with.
I don't know why I always remember this one, and this isn't even like this isn't even that bad. It's just I remember I was watching Dragon Ball Z on VHS, like a bootleg, and I was watching Frieza long before the Frieza saga aired on TV here.
Oh man.
And it was like shortly after Frieza kills Krillin and he goes Super Saiyan, and Goku's like, "Frieza, you rat bastard!" In the I remember thinking to myself, what is the Japanese word for rat bastard?
Very interesting vocabulary choice on that fan's part.
Yeah, I did not, I didn't know anything about Japanese at that point, so I didn't know any better. So I was like legitimately questioning what the Japanese word for rat bastard is. But anyway, short tangent there. Banana Fish. I like I said, I enjoy some of it when it's on, and there's definitely something there, but it's just not quite balancing out right. But I will say that I just kind of I still continue to find it fascinating because it's such a unique property, a unique perspective, something written, by women for women that's this, violent and, it's not that those things don't exist, but you never see them in the mainstream. And this is like this is the, this is a TV anime. Right. This is, not some obscure. It's not Devilman Crybaby on Netflix or something like that. So I think it's actually the Noitamina. Is that how you say that? I've never said that out loud.
Noitamin? I
always said Noitamin.
I don't know that. Yeah, it's one of their shows for this season actually. So, I understand that's not the highest profile as it used to be, a high profile thing as it used to be, but that is fairly mainstream for anime at this point. So, just kind of weird that this show is being aired with the way it is. So, all right, so let's keep moving. Speaking of Netflix shows, Sirius the Jaeger. So, gee, you've actually kept up with this.
Yeah.
How's it been going?
I've actually been really digging it. The thing with... So, I guess the thing I'd say with Sirius the Jaeger is... I don't want to say surprisingly good. I feel like that's insulting to it because I think it is actually genuinely well made for the specific genre it is. The director has a really solid handling of good fight choreography that you just don't see in most anime. I feel like most anime fights kind of tend to operate on that sort of pseudo turn-based trading hits sort of concept, but the director of Sirius the Jaeger, whose name escapes me right now, but also directed stuff like Sword of the Stranger, is clearly a dude who watches a lot of martial arts movies, and good martial arts movies, because the way the camera holds on fights, it does it in a way that most anime and even most like live action, action movies don't necessarily always do. And it speaks to a very capable handling of it that I personally really enjoy. And the story's fine. The characters are not particularly unique, but they are all generally likable. The cast is I don't even know how to describe them. They're just like, I don't know, maybe this is really damning, but it's just, none of them are offensive enough to me to turn me off from the show. The main character is like this, I don't know, kind of moody, kind of brooding, vampire hunter, and he's all like, oh, you can't find out about the true me because this world is too dangerous or something. But then the rest of the cast is just like, man, fucking whatever, dude. We hunt vampires. That's what we do. And even like the girl he's saying all this stuff to is like, yeah, well, you know what? I'm pretty fucking good with a sword, so maybe don't fucking treat me like I can't keep up. And again, it's not like these characters are particularly unique, but they're written decently enough that the story is a fine enough vehicle for the action.
Right.
And I guess in general, don't really need to go too deep into it. Action's good, the music's good, the characters are fine. It's very much just a super solid 7 out of 10 anime action show.
Right. Well, I mean, that director does have a pretty good pedigree if you're saying he did Sword of the Stranger. So, I mean, that's good that it's seems to be carrying over, I suppose.
Yeah, if again, it's not going to like blow anybody away, but I think if you're into, if you're in the mood for
some anime action,
something kind of like, just good anime action that's, attached to something that isn't like explicitly bad, offensive, or problematic.
It's hard to come by these
Sirius
days, actually.
The Jaeger's got your back. Yeah, I know, right? Like, that's a thing, it's like if all I cared about was, good action and high production values, then, I'd be fucking watching Sword Art Online or some shit, but...
Right. Because
again...
feels like all the fantasy action shows are all the isekai shows, so...
Yeah.
Surprised Sakuga blog's not talking about it. Oh, I guess it's not officially released yet.
I mean, not officially, not officially available, I think Netflix just announced that Sirius the Jaeger will be airing in December of 2018, so...
Oh, God.
There's that, and, also, like, I don't know, I feel like the Sakuga blog guys don't really talk about action that often. I feel like they're kind of more concerned about, fucking, oh, this character's emotions were animated really well, but...
Yeah, well...
I feel like they kind of pay short shrift to good, well-directed action in general, so...
Far be it from me to trash talk another anime blog, so... You guys do good work over there.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. You guys are doing fine over there. Don't mind me.
Yeah. All right. So, glad to hear that one's still sticking around. Um, let's move on to Chio School Road, which actually is one of the shows we're all watching.
Yeah.
Um, if I had to pick one word for this, I'd say inconsistent. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think in many ways, right? Chio School Road is what okay, what one might call the problematic fave, right? It's
There's some of that, yes. I think I will say when we first talked about it, we mentioned how the kind of directing and comedic timing was
there.
all over the
Yeah, there are some
place, and they were
issues.
kind of stretching a lot of things out. They did do better on it for some episodes. I'm thinking in particular, I think my favorite one was the how are we
Mananana.
going to say it? The one when they do the dumb dance, the
Oh,
stupid
the
dance,
Mananana Chio dance. Yes,
the
yes.
Manana Chio dance, yes, which was so just brilliantly stupid.
Oh yeah, like
And
out of
they
left field in a really
and
good
they
way.
had that was an example of where they had like the comedic timing of it just down perfect
Oh,
on all
totally,
that.
totally.
Like the deadpan reaction from the other girl, like everything was great.
I mean,
that. So
yeah, I think
they've shown that they're capable.
Yes. I think the problem Chio School Road runs into, other than some of its pacing, its choices, is that again, not to try and excuse the show, but there are certain characters in Chio School Road that work better than others, and when those characters are on screen, when those characters that work really well are on screen, you have some really great jokes. Like that's I don't know if she's actually a school rep or whatever, but like during the Mananana Chio dance or whatever. But when she comes back, is again also a very good episode or chapter. It's really good. But then you have characters like Kabaddi Girl, where when she shows up, things kind of fall apart in a way that is
and they get the problematic in all capitals spaced out.
So
yeah,
I just watched
yeah,
the newest
and
episode,
it's
and
just,
that does not change.
Yes. Right. It's like I also like skimmed through it real quick just to remind myself what chapters those are, and the first half of that episode is really fucking good.
Oh yeah,
because it's engaging in I think the parts that are best about Chio School Road, which is Chio herself, like her very like weirdly specific gaming preferences, and like just because the thing is like I know I compared it to It's Not My Fault I'm Not Popular, that anime from a few years back. But I think the thing that Chio School Road does a lot better is that Chio actually is like halfway socially competent.
Right.
It's just that
she's not just like a female otaku.
Right. But that social competence is almost used entirely in service of either A, hiding, her quote unquote power level, or B, doing dirtbaggy things to her friends. So
Right.
Yeah, all those parts of it are great. I was just thinking about because that same episode with the Mananachio dance was the first half was great too, where she was trying to break out of the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
And trying to use her stealth skills from her playing probably Metal Gear or something, and trying to break out of the bathroom.
Right.
So like all that stuff is great, and like you said, G, the fact that Chio is actually a somewhat competent like human being, just even in general, like she's actually pretty athletic and stuff like that. Like that's kind of like bucks the trend of what you would normally expect from her type of character, where she would just be like a loner indoor nerd that never goes outside.
Right. I mean, like
right, and Manana and her have
has
such great chemistry together.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing of Manana is probably my actual favorite character in Chio School Road, but also I don't think she could carry an anime comedy on her own if she was the main character. Like, she is so good specifically because she is the dirtbag normie dark mirror to Chio in a lot of
Right.
ways. Like Chio is the one who's obviously a lot more like socially inept and like a lot more unaware, but also in a weird way she is happier with her lot in life, whereas Manana is kind of cursed with having just enough self-awareness to know like how
Right.
low on the social totem pole she is and how much that fucking drives her up the wall.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like they're both like dirtbags, but Chio is like kind of puts up some effort of hiding it, whereas
She's not always a
Whereas,
dirtbag. She's just mostly a dirtbag. Whereas
Right.
Manana seems to only function on
she
dirtbag.
thrives on it. Yes. It's
And
pretty
I think, and that's a thing, right? I think when it's Chio, when it's Manana, when it's the school rep, even when it's a runner girl, like when it's Ando, like there are characters that work really well with Chio School Road, and I think kind of get back to it. Unfortunately, with the latter half of this most recent episode is when Kabaddi Girl shows up, things go real south in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I remember you talking about how you said, well, there's some times when you read this manga when you can definitely tell the guy worked on like some hentai stuff, and I was like,
Yep.
Yeah,
man, I did not think they were going to make that transition so like direct. Like it was pretty much like
Oh, it becomes very obvious in certain
Yeah.
places.
So just
unfortunately.
since this
Like-
is an audio format and people may have not have watched the show, we're talking about a character that is basically a anime boob monster, and she plays this weird obscure sport solely for the sake of being able to feel up other girls, because of course they got to throw in the predatory lesbian character.
I mean, for Christ's sake, her fucking the episode, like the last episode, fucking ends with her like just fucking shouting into the sky, "I just want to grope some ass."
Yes.
right.
Whew. So yeah, because in that one episode she meets the pervert homeless guy who trains her in the art of groping women.
Yeah.
And
And in this most recent episode, she is summoned because she heard a woman screaming. And is it?
she is attracted to women screaming. Yes.
I shouldn't laugh, but it's
Yes,
really
we laugh
it's
to
bad
we
in a
laugh to
very-
stop from crying.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah,
But,
it's
oh man. So
it,
it's kind of unfortunate that
yeah.
that is she's the worst character, and her first appearance was bad, but it was like, all right, if they're just gonna put her out on the shelf from here, then I'll live with that. But
Mhm.
so far she's already appeared 2 more times in 3 episodes, and they're like doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on her, and she's like the worst part. So
Right.
hopefully she actually does go away for a little while, because I feel like she shouldn't be
Right.
that much of an important character. But
Again, it's the thing of I don't remember if she actually kind of stops showing up or if I just blocked those chapters out of my memory, but I feel like even the author himself begins to realize around this point that she doesn't bring that much comedy to the story and that there are other better characters to work with. But
Right. Like Ando.
that could
is
just be my
great.
selective memory.
it's too
Like,
bad
Every
too. 'cause,
episode that Ando's been in is great.
Oh man, if this anime keeps going, there are some very good Ando chapters down the line. So
Yeah, it's too bad too, because that first episode we meet the Kabaddi girl, like the actual leading up to the end part where she starts groping everybody, is actually pretty funny when they're like making this intense battle out of this weird obscure sport or whatever.
Right.
And they just had to go there.
Mhm.
But all right, well, I think Chio is just gonna. I'm expecting it'll continue to go up and down quality wise, whether or not that girl shows up more. But I feel like the highs are high enough that I'm still kind of enjoying it overall, or at least enough to stick with it to the end. We've made it this far, so
right. I mean, Chio School Road is never going to be the Hinamatsuri we all so desperately need.
what really is though?
You know,
What really is?
Yeah, it's
I
gonna be
mean,
hard
I don't
to beat
know,
that.
man. I guess I'm not as versed in anime comedy as you guys, but yeah, I don't even know if I can even think of anything that.
Yeah, it's pretty high on the totem pole. The more time I've had to think about it, and especially after reading the manga, which gets released next month in English, please buy it.
Should probably buy it.
And you should read it because the stuff that happens after the anime is pretty good. goes places. Ramen Master Anzu. That's all I will say.
Look, man, I'll buy as many fucking volumes as they need if it'll guarantee season 2. So
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So moving along, I guess it is our obligation to once again touch base with My Hero Academia, which we mentioned earlier. Now,
the actual JoJo of the season.
Can I just say, like, as an outside observer, it appears to me that the show is in somewhat of a lull after the highs of the last core. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's very accurate.
Yeah, I would say so. It's, as a manga reader, I'm not gonna spoil too much here, but basically the anime is kind of stuck in a weird, uncomfortable place because the arc that comes up after the current one is a really big arc. It's a very big part of the story, and they just don't have enough episodes left to get to it. So they're kind of left in this weird place where the current arc is kind of this, in the manga, it's kind of this slight one-off thing that they don't really spend that much time on before moving on to the next big arc. But because of the way anime is paced out, like, they don't have enough episodes to get to the next big arc, but there's also too many episodes for the current one.
Oh yeah, and you can tell
so they're kind of left in this.
It's
yeah,
it kind of stinks.
Like, it's a thing of, the thing we loved about My Hero Academia was how good its pacing was. Like compared to most Weekly Shonen Jump anime adaptations, how good My Hero Academia is at keeping up just this really good, fast pace. Right. And the last couple of episodes are still the content of them is fine. It's decent for what it is, but the pacing of them starts to remind you of the old days of Naruto or Bleach spending like 5 episodes on a flashback or something.
Yeah, it's a real shame because it kind of reminded me a lot of Yu Yu Hakusho, which is another, like, probably my favorite shonen show of all time, where, yeah, like, the arcs in Yu Yu Hakusho are really fast-paced, and there's not a whole lot of downtime. And it's been pretty much the same way, like you said. And then we get to this part, but not even that. It's just that it's so inconsequential that it's this, like, they're getting a license to be a hero, and it's like they're treating.
I mean, it's the Chunin exams.
Yeah, basically, it's basically the Chunin exams. But even the Chunin exams had a bit more, like, I don't know, like, a bit more to go on.
True. I will say that there are things that happen at the end of this arc that, if not necessarily have long-standing consequences, do some important things narratively for a couple of characters who either needed a shot of reality or a wake-up call, or needed to be called out on their actions in ways that the story had not done up till now, that I did appreciate. Okay. But the payoff is kind of slight for how long the anime is taking to get there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I guess you go on long enough and these kinds of things are inevitable. Something's not going to line up.
Right.
So
it's a Shonen Jump show. Grass is green. It's super long.
I mean, also, like, but it also isn't super long, dude. Like, we're all there, like, think about it. Like, where the fuck was Naruto in episode 56? It was probably still, like, Naruto was probably still in the fucking Chunin exam, the actual Chunin exams in episode 56, or, like, Zabuza or something. You know?
Well, they had to have been past that part by then, right?
Oh, I don't know, man. Fucking those old Shonen Jump anime were slow as hell. Like,
yeah.
Thinking about Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, and I mean, in the grand scheme of things, one little lull when the rest of the show has been so well paced is probably not that big a deal. But, all right. Well, at least it continues to be good and dependable, right? To a certain degree.
Oh yeah, I'm not hating it. I just think that, like, it's the best. Well, I don't know if I can even say it's the best shonen anime, but it's the best recently made shonen anime that I've ever seen. Like, not counting JoJo. It's super great, and it's a little bit of a lull. I'm hoping it'll pick back up. I just wish it was going a little faster.
Right. All right. So next on the list, I'm kind of sad I have not kept up on this. I'm a couple episodes behind, but Cells at Work kind of won me over by the episode with the killer T cells and macrophage when they showed up.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I just haven't had time to catch up after that. But how has that been going?
Pretty good. I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, still good, still enjoyable. It's it is definitely the kind of just solid, inoffensive show of this season, but it's still just been great at the thing it does, the very specific thing it does.
Right. And as we all thought, it does kind of scratch that itch of like, man, I actually know these terms, even though, like, even before they do the little monologue that tells you what they're all about. Like, getting into nematodes and fading your stomach lining and stuff like that. It's fun for me.
I mean, even as somebody who has not taken biology since fucking high school or something, it's still fun to be like, oh shit, hey, I remember learning about like this specific thing about the human body 10 years ago or something.
Right.
It's again, not to bring up fucking Osmosis Jones once again, but it is just
kind of hard not to.
Look, it's just the fun thing of like, how are they going to portray this thing this week?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh, yeah, and that's the really fun thing too. Is like nematodes are like millimeters long in real life, but since these are cells, it turns out like it looks like this giant dragon bursting through the stomach.
I think they've done a pretty good job, I think, interpreting like even like the fact that like the difference between like bacteria and viruses, where like bacteria are
right,
actual,
that
like,
was really cool.
Aliens, but viruses are like a zombie outbreak type of thing.
Right.
It's kind of neat. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to catch up with it at some point. It's been a lot of fun.
And I mean, it's also, just to bring it up real quick, it is like weirdly winding up into what seems to be a multi-episode arc. I won't spoil the specific ailment that this really unfortunate human body seems to suffer from, but
man, yeah, this guy's got a tough time.
They're winding up to something kind of. Look, they're
pretty serious.
Look, all the ailments this person has suffered are bad, of course, but the particular ailment this person is about to suffer next is we'll see how they handle it, because it's interesting, I guess.
Yeah. Gee, was it you that found the like spin-off mangas where they're like the Cells at Work Black or something like that, where it's like a dark
Oh yeah, I found that manga spin-off of Cells at Work called Cells at Work Black, where it's about the human body, but it's like the human body of like some middle-aged like alcoholic druggie or something.
But yes.
So like
go on.
So like, the body is like in horrible disrepair. Like in the one chapter I read, like all those like neat roads that like the cells take like are like totally like fucking like there's like rubble everywhere to represent what's it called? Not cholesterol. What's the shit that clogs up veins?
Plaque.
Yeah, like plaque. There's like plaque built up, like in the form of like destroyed, desiccated buildings blocking off, veins and shit.
Oh, wow.
Like they don't have the red blood cells in this. Don't have carts. They have to carry everything by hand. There's like
marauding gangs of street.
Yeah, like just like it's like some real fucking like dystopian cyberpunk shit where like they're just marauding street gangs of bacteria and viruses just fucking roaming around completely unstopped. The white blood cells in this are like, they're like the dystopian police force where they're like, totally undermanned and underfunded.
I mean, I could see you, like, it would be a little dark even for something called Cells at Work Black, but doing, like, HIV as, like, crooked cops. Because, like,
that's really dark. but yeah, totally, right? Like, it's definitely the kind of feeling I got anyways from reading that one untranslated chapter. It hadn't been translated at the time that people were finding out about it, but with the popularity of Cells at Work, I imagine by now there's probably some fan translations out there. But
maybe we'll get that anime next summer or something.
Yeah, Funnily enough, I also discovered another Cells at Work spin-off in the process that I don't remember the name of. I think it's a one-shot chapter, but it is a Cells at Work story about somebody with sickle cell anemia.
Oh wow.
And how in that version the red blood cells are all super lazy.
Oh, I thought you were
And
going
they
to say
just
they all, like, for some reason they all had knives and they were just cutting stuff off.
or is it not sickle cell anemia? It's again, it was also untranslated, but
Well,
Or just
it does
being
also,
anemic in
like,
general. Just
or
right.
maybe it was just the person was anemic in general because based on the panels I saw, the macrophage was like, "Come on, guys, we got to get to work," and all the red blood cells are like fucking lounging around, like reading porno mags and drinking.
I mean, that could be sickle cell anemia. I'm just thinking, like, another thing that sickle cell anemia does is because, like, as the name implies, it's super sharp. It'll actually cut up capillaries when it goes into small enough capillary vessels. But yeah, it also doesn't carry oxygen as well as
Right, I think that's the thing. Right, it was like they were like lounging around, sitting on top of their oxygen crates or whatever. But
it's pretty
Right.
good.
I don't know. Point is, the turns out the Cells at Work premise has a lot of mileage behind it. So
right.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising, but that seems to be the case. So pretty good.
Mm.
All right, so moving along, this might now be my favorite show of the season somehow.
huh.
But
It's getting close. Lupin is still the number one for me, but
Asobi Asobase, the what are the site? Workshop
like
of
the
Fun
Workshop
or something.
of Fun, yeah.
I was not super excited about the first two episodes of this because they were kind of, I'm not going to say they were boring, but the ceiling seemed real low on this one. Like, they were playing kendama and rock, paper, scissors and stuff like that. And, like, it was just the three girls hanging out in the classroom or whatever. And I'm like, there's not really a lot of room to grow on this one, which for a, crazy anime comedy, you need, like, sort of an unlimited ceiling on it, right? And
yeah, it seemed like the kind of thing where you see a manga starts and, like, the author has a vision, and then he realizes the vision isn't really that great,
Yes.
so he, like, tries to change things around. And in this case, it actually really worked out well, I think.
Yeah, so
So like Chio School Road.
Maybe.
Yeah, there's definitely some similarities because, like, I think Hanako is very similar to Manana, but yeah, they kind of open it up because they reveal Hanako is super rich, and as soon as you have a super rich character, you can do weird things.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if they had butt lasers and Harry Potter / fiction and all the other crazy things that were happening, like, from episode 3 on, I would have been much more excited about it after the first two episodes. But yeah, they've been killing it ever since. So
Oh yeah, it's been great.
I guess that's why I brought up Chio School Road, because I feel like those are both two comedy anime where the first couple of episodes, it seems like they hadn't quite discovered the winning formula yet.
Right.
Introducing Manana in Chio School Road, or introducing, I guess, butt lasers apparently to Asobase. So
it's the fact that so since her family's super rich and she has, like, her creepy,
Like, pseudo.
I guess he's the butler.
Yeah, like she says, he just lives there.
Yeah, yes, she has no idea what he does.
That's
He
a way
just
to
works
put it.
for her family. Like, so he shoots lasers out of his butt.
They imply
that's
that
a
he was
surprisingly
abducted by
important
aliens in the 70s or something.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly important plot point, actually, that comes up a couple times. And then this was it the last episode where he builds the cute boy robot to watch her study.
Right. with her grandpa, and they both record the voices for the robot.
Yeah, so stuff like that didn't seem possible in the first two episodes, and now that that's happened, like, the possibilities are, like, endless. But yeah, and just, like, the sense of humor has been really great. There is actually surprise, like, you were talking about the continuity thing. They introduced like the occult girl who has, like, this terrifying eyes, but turns out to be pretty nice person.
Yeah, just wants to be with her friends.
I just remember she, like, in one episode, she, like, randomly starts talking to herself about how, the club's gonna close because two members graduated, and then this person left, and this other person got teleported away, and they just like never come back to that.
Mhm.
And so I just thought that was going to be like we're never going to come back to that joke. But no, next episode they come back and explain like what happened to the teleported away girl, and that becomes a whole plot line for the episode and everything. And
They stab a
Yeah.
voodoo doll.
yeah, the sweetest, like the nicest moment in the entire show ever was them stabbing a voodoo doll with like 100 pins to help their friend, her friend, get better or whatever. But yeah, it's very much a girls behaving badly comedy. I believe Aqua described it as R-rated love lab, which is a pretty good description.
Yeah, that's a pretty good
Huh.
one. I actually kind of like the designs. Like some people say it's too pastel, but I think it at least gives it a level of quality that in Chio's School Road sometimes it's just a little too low. That like the art's a little too rough.
I think it's grown on me. It's very unique. Like you won't mistake this show for
Yeah.
another show. Like it has a look that's very unique, and I think the idea of having kind of the soft pastel, pretty colors contrasted with the horrible content has been growing on me. I don't know if that was the original intention. It kind of seems that way.
I want to say
But,
it has to be.
Yeah, it's starting to work out. And gee, they have a cute short-haired teacher, so you should probably watch it.
Guess I should pay attention, huh?
She doesn't know.
I
Kung
mean,
Fu,
look,
though.
man.
This wouldn't be a
It's like-
podcast with us bringing up one of your preferences, but
Whatever. Hey, I ain't gonna deny it. I mean, look, we could go back real quick, and I'll admit, a not insignificant portion of the reason why I'm still watching Grand Blue is also because they introduced this chick who might as well be like short-haired alcoholic sex hair from Amagami.
Oh, that's quite the
Oh.
claim.
that's
That hits a lot of
pushes a lot of buttons,
pushes a lot of buttons. Yes, so there is that.
checks a lot of check boxes.
It does. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that's slowly becoming my favorite show. Just to how it's very very
Me
much
too.
my brand of comedy, and they've really pulled it together. It's coming together well. So go
Yeah.
watch that. All right, so we're gonna have some interesting discussions, I think, on the next two shows.
We really fucked up. We are 90 minutes in,
Yeah.
and we saved the two shows where I am fucking ready to go knives out about.
I thought this was gonna go a lot faster, but once we get
like,
talking,
I
man,
figured,
time flies.
like 3 people, and like in a season like this, we wouldn't have anything to talk about. But
It's
turns
a
out,
shorter list than we usually have, and we're finding ways to
Mhm.
stretch it. But the show must go on here, so let's get it going. So
well, the anime cops are here.
the anime police have
They know that Planet
Come to
Wish.
shut
They
has
know
got
that we're trying to
problems.
do this without Eero.
yes. Ira pulled the fire alarm on us. So Planet With. We have had many internal discussions on this. I think our opinions are probably not as far off as we might be thinking. But
No, I was originally planning to be super hyperbolic in case we needed to stretch for time, but seeing as it is the exact opposite, I will probably just have to boil down my arguments to their more honest version instead of the extremely exaggerated versions I was going to make that I'd have trouble walking back later.
well, let's start by saying I think we'd probably all agree that the show is not living up to its potential.
No. Yeah,
That's
it's
probably
not.
fair.
Yeah,
I
it's.
still think it's good, but
I mean, some of it. I mean, I think the thing we can all like. I think before we get into the narrative stuff, where I think is where we all diverge a little bit. But I think the general consensus we all have with Planet With is we like a lot of what it is doing and trying to do, but it is sort of a Golden Kamui situation where it's just kind of inherently hamstrung by its productions.
Yeah.
Like its production values.
Right.
I'd agree with that.
And that's that goes for animation, directing, the pacing of it. Part of me appreciates that it's going extremely fast, but it might be giving up, as an expense, the kind of character development and time to breathe that we need to really appreciate the themes that they're going for.
Not to once again just be like Mizukami is literally the greatest mangaka that ever lived or anything like that, but the thing that makes Mizukami's manga or his stories in general work so well is all his characters are given time to shine or to breathe or to just live, and that makes them so much more compelling and interesting and likable than a lot of other manga with really large casts.
Right.
Like in Biscuit Hammer, like they have so much time. They introduce a character that died like 10 years or something or maybe it was like 5 years or something before the series even started, just to show how he like saved two of the other characters' lives. But I don't think you could really.
Yeah, and he's like a.
I don't think you can really do that with the time we have left in this story.
I think, yeah, it's definitely the case where I guess. All right, let's just get into this. So, with only a single core to work with, I'm not necessarily getting the feeling from Planet With that I like to get, or I need to get from my Mizukami stories. And some of that is just, likely the realities of being an anime where you just intrinsically don't have as much time. And as an author, unlike manga where you could suddenly decide to shift gears for a chapter, you can't really do that with anime. And I think it's the thing where the last two episodes, I think we could agree the last two episodes have definitely felt like they were supposed to be the kind of the Mizukami patented midpoint paradigm shift, where Mizukami pulls back the curtain and is like, you thought this was a story about,
right,
fighting aliens or robots. Actually, no, it's a heartwarming story about the power of friendship to save each other or something, and
they're the episodes that would have been like the last episode in other anime.
Yes. That like Mizukami always puts in the middle because he knows that what happens after the climax is always so much more, or not always, but can often be so much more interesting.
It's a less explored space.
Right.
And I actually even really liked this previous episode, the one with the ending, which I guess maybe it's because it had this really good climactic finish to it. But yeah, it's too quick. Like, I think this really needed 2 cores to be what it could like fully be.
I think, I kind of agree because, if we're talking about the other pilots, right? The only ones that have, a particularly well-defined personalities are the ones that got like 1 or 2 full episodes devoted to them.
Mm-hmm.
But as a result, we have all these other pilots where beyond their like 2 to 5 minute long, tragic dream world backstory thing, we really don't get a good feel for what drives them. Like if you asked what drives each and every single member of the Animal Knights in Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer, you could easily write a paragraph for each and every single one of them because, Mizukami so lovingly fleshed out each and every single one of them. And I fear with the amount of time we have left, we might not get enough of that in Planet With.
Really what I'm saying is I wish the show was made by Gainax in 2002, directed by Kazuya Tsurumaki, #FreeTsurumaki.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Give it 24 to 26 episodes.
Oh.
And
I don't know. The soundtrack of Planet With is actually quite good.
Yeah, I think that. But yes.
I think Planet With soundtrack is actually like really good at nailing that feel. Like you can tell Mizukami wants the story to evoke the same feelings we all get from watching like that era of like mid-90s.
He's very much tapping into that with the battles and how they're playing out with Soya jumping out of his mech to punch the bad guy in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Straight out of
with his fucking sandal
or something.
It's so good. And like that's the thing is like these moments themselves, if you describe them in a vacuum, sound great. It's just you're right. This anime had to have been made by either early 2000s Gainax or like '08 era Bones. Like, it needed to be a studio that had the resources and the talent to really,
Like,
really bring forth Planet With's best traits.
yeah.
Yep. I really hope that Mizukami and Tsurumaki get to work together before they die, because I think their
that's
styles
the
are
dream team,
so
man.
perfect for each other. And I don't think Biscuit and Hammer will ever happen, but something, any project where those two can work together, that's like a dream scenario for me, because just his style of writing and like Tsurumaki's kind of like, subtle touches, giving things. Yeah,
Their creative sensibilities.
they would match so well together. And if he was doing this anime with the resources back in the peak Gainax era, this probably would have been like one of the best shows. But sadly,
Oh, totally. I mean,
case.
I think, again, we're not, again, I don't want it to sound, I know we're sounding harsh on Planet With, and apologies to Iro, who is not here to probably defend
I'm
Planet
probably
With's
the
honor,
biggest defender of it out of all of us.
But the thing is, I think I want to reiterate, we all still like the show. It has all the things that Mizukami does well in it, that exist in its framework. I think the reason why we're all, maybe being as hard on it as we are is because like the next show we're about to talk about, we can see what it could be.
Right.
Like Planet With, like, Zhao, you're totally right. Like, there is a universe where Planet With, I shit you not, maybe sits up there with like Gurren Lagann, right? Like, if it had the resources it needed, because it has the heart, it has the personality, it has the right sensibilities. It just doesn't have enough of, I don't know, it just doesn't have enough of the fire to bring it all together.
Yeah, well,
it's a good show that deserves to be great, and it's not, and that's what we're disappointed with. But it's still a good show. It's just.
And also, again, this is Mizukami we're talking about.
We still have a lot of time.
Still turn around,
He could still be playing.
Yeah.
He could still be playing the long
Still
game.
have a lot of time.
We could be talking about this in a completely different light once we've seen the finale, because if any man can do a great finale, it's him. So,
I mean, in a bubble, those last two episodes were fantastic, but it just, we'll see. There's a lot of time. Hopefully they, hopefully they use it well.
Right.
So,
yeah.
All right, G has started to allude to our final show on our list, which has been one of the more interesting shows given our expectations for it. But Hanebado, the hot girls badminton anime, which has sparked a surprising amount of debate amongst the GLORIO crew. And it's been good.
Yeah, I'd
overall,
say it's been good
I guess.
It's even been great in a couple of spots. I mean,
the first episode was so impressive, and that unfortunately set a really high bar for the rest of the episodes. But it's still been pretty good.
Yeah, I would say like the first two episodes are kind of like a tiny encapsulation of a lot of good things about sports anime. And should we just get into it? I mean.
Well, let me start before we get into the themes
Sure.
here. I think one of my overall problems is they kind of jump all over the place too much. And I've written about this extensively in the roundup, where they seem to have trouble focusing on like plot points that we feel like should be important, or like switching off of certain plot points before they fully have time to develop. And they might come back to it later or whatever, but they're, bouncing all around. So we're, really what we want is like Ayano and Nagisa as like the centerpiece, but we're bouncing around a glasses girl, and then the girl that has the crush on the one boy that's in the club or whatever. And, and then they'll introduce another rival character. Somehow Ayano has two twin tail nasty rival girls.
It's very... we talked about it before, but like the Hanebado anime is very different from the Hanebado manga, and anytime those rival characters show up, you are reminded of like Hanebado's bizarre, like extremely shallow lineage.
Basically,
that the anime studio somehow managed to like truly squeeze blood from a
Just
stone.
random thing.
I have a feeling that that's kind of the main cause. The main cause for its bouncing all over the place is it's like desperately trying to like you said, squeeze blood from a stone here and make it into something. But yeah, that's kind of weird. But all right, G,
So
it's time. Go ahead.
Sure. So my thoughts are actually that I disagree a little bit about it bouncing around too much, because I actually found the Glasses Senpai episode to be really good.
It was good, but I felt like it was like not where we needed to be in the story at that point.
Not what we need in the current kind of story we're telling. Right?
So I think, though, it all depends on what happens next episode, because they showed next episode that it's going to be Hard Work Girl versus the girl that beat Glasses Girl. And it might be telling a little bit that we cannot seem to remember anyone's names in this show. But
it's like, Nagisa, Ayano, and literally everybody else.
Yeah. And so, like, if they set that up well, then it'll be good of, like, Glasses Girl lost, and it's kind of showing Hard Work Girl's growth as, like, a teammate. Because, she's kind of come a long way from being so self-centered and self-driven to actually being the captain that she's supposed to be for this team.
I would agree, and I think it is unfortunate, right? Because a lot of what we're about to talk about right now does kind of hinge on how they carry the next episode. But I think in general, that's kind of my concerns with Hanebado in a nutshell, is that Hanebado is good, but also Hanebado concerns me on a fundamental level because, Marlin, as you can attest to, shades of ping pong in Hanebado. And
oh, yeah, for sure.
The problem, though, is that ping pong might as well be considered one of the greatest sports anime ever made. And
I'm with you on that one, for sure.
If you're going to shoot for that bar, the expectations that come with it grow so much more consequential if you fail to reach it. And ping pong I had faith in because it's motherfucking Yuasa. Like, dude almost always fucking nails it, But
yeah, I'm starting to see lot of the mirrors too. Like, there was I forget his name, but the bald guy who he beats Peko initially.
Azuma, yeah.
Like, and then Peko just comes back and destroys him, and it's a lot.
Fucking destroys him, right? Yeah, like, and it's kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like the pink girl, it's kind of the same thing. Like, she comes in, she's like, "Can't play badminton for crap. I'm gonna kick your butt." Like, she literally says, "I'm gonna like mop the floor with you this episode." Like, the trash talk was really good this episode.
But also, like, but then the thing, right? But then, like, Marlin, if you remember, also, it's like, is that not Azuma, Akuma? Is that or I think, was his name Azuma?
Yeah,
they just nicknamed him Akuma because he looks like a demon.
Yeah, they kept making that joke.
But anyways, the thing is, like, right, it's kind of a similar mirror where, like, Akuma was a giant asshole, but also there was a tragedy to his character because dude hustled harder than any other character in that show.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he still came up short in the end. And, I'm not saying, like, he was, like, necessarily sympathetic, but I definitely had a lot of feelings about the character because of the way they so effectively, like, frameworked his kind of small arc in the story.
Right.
And that's kind of the feeling I also got from the last episode with
that sounds exactly like what they tried to do in this last episode.
Yeah,
right. With Connie, right? It's
no, Connie's the other.
Connie's the Dutch, or the Danish girl.
Oh my god, fucking right. Kaoruko, right? Is like, here's the thing. Like, Kaoruko is the kind of sports anime character I actually love in a good sports anime, right? Where she's, like, fierce and she's driven, and even when she's, like, getting her ass beat in the first round, right? Like the worst kind of sports rival is the one who's, like, the second they get beat, they're like, "Oh no, my strategies," right? Like, they fall apart because, like, they got. But, like, I loved her match in this, where, like, she gets beat and, like, she doesn't crumble. She bends and she flexes. She takes a step back and recontextualizes the strategy and comes back stronger. And in many ways, that's what you want out of a good sports protagonist, right? You want somebody you can root for, because not just because they're necessarily the best, but because they hustle the hardest and they think the hardest. And They don't break even when, it's that fucking it's that fucking Goichi Dragon Ball Fighters shit where even when he's down to just Vegeta at half health against a full 3-man team, he doesn't break. He keeps fighting, and then he fucking summons Shenron. It's
Right.
It's a thing where like that's super compelling because it's just so much more interesting than just instantly winning because you're better. And I'm not saying that like she didn't deserve to like get her ass beat because she was, kind of a fucking asshole this episode, but
that was the interesting thing about the episode is you start off like enjoying the fact that she's getting demolished, but then your opinion kind of slowly shifts over as you kind of see Ayano's state of mind, and then also
and she totally just rubs her face in it, like
yeah, how Ayano's even worse by the end of the episode than she was in the beginning.
Totally.
So it's kind of an interesting transition they make in that episode,
and I think
kind of show.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just showing Ayano's state of mind at that point.
And I think that's going to get to now the primary crux of my concern is Ayano, the character herself, because the problem with Ayano is the same problem I actually had with Smile and Pekko and Ping Pong, where the first half of Ping Pong, neither of them are particularly likable. They're both deeply flawed characters, and their personalities are extremely rough to tolerate. But
there's that one Christmas episode that shows a lot.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, honestly, I think that Christmas episode by that point, I guess.
I mean, you could even argue the Christmas episode is the turning point. Like,
right.
Like you could say that is when Ping Pong went from good to fucking masterful. But it's a thing that. So the thing is, like, I feel like Hanebado is now in that pre-Christmas episode state where all the pieces are in play, all the potential is there, but if done poorly, will completely torpedo this show.
Another thing is, like, we're still just in the qualifying rounds. Like, is this show going to end with them just like winning the qualifiers for nationals, and we're not even going to see anything past that?
I think I don't know about you, man, but I think a lot of my favorite sports anime are kind of small scale like that, right? Like, it's not always about, like, it's not about making it to Koshien or whatever. Sometimes it's about making it into quarterfinals of Koshien.
Yeah.
Or, like, Slam Dunk, considered, maybe one of the greatest sports stories ever told, kind of the blueprint to which all modern sports manga and anime are held to, Look, it's a very old story, so spoilers, it ends in a loss, but it's a kind of a magnificent one, and in some ways that was far more compelling than winning the big championship could ever be.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is, like, they're not even going to get to the championship. This is just, like, the
the thing is that how much does... But sorry, go ahead.
It kind of doesn't matter. What they have brought up is for the seniors, this is like their last tournament, so it might as well be their championship. So maybe
right. I mean, like, Glasses Girl is already out. Like, that's kind of what makes it so crushing, right?
Right.
Is your last shot for glory, and
out in the first round.
And I think that's the thing, right? Different sports anime prioritize this differently, but I guess the thing I would ask you, Marlin, is how important is the championship to Hanebado versus the personal growth of its characters?
Yeah, I guess I get it. The personal growth is what's important. It's just
like, look, don't get me wrong. If this fucking show ends with Nagisa beating Ayano's ass and winning the big trophy, like, I'll be very happy. But also,
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not what I need from this show. What I need from this show is what I need from this show right now is for that kind of ping pong-esque moment where a rival or a mentor kind of just takes Ayano aside and kind of just systematically break them down piece by piece. Someone who will basically just spell out to Ayano why you suck right now, how come you don't always suck, and what can we do to make you the best version of yourself.
It does seem like the coach is starting to pick up on something. Like, they did some cutaways to him where it's like, he's starting to look concerned.
Her friend too was like calling her out for
Yeah, I'm glad that happened.
By the end of the episode.
Yeah.
I'm sure they will.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sure they're going to deal with it. It's just a question of how they're going to deal with it. So, like,
yes,
I know a lot of it is definitely going to be, because the whole thing comes back to her mother, right? So,
Right.
you know, how are they going to deal with the stuff with their mother? How are they going to still because Connie's tied to that? How are they going to deal with Connie? Like, I could see it. I could see a scenario where she continues with the murder face up until her match with Connie, and you know, at some point she realizes that her friends are more important than trying to please her mother, and you know, maybe she ends up losing. Who knows? Maybe that's a way they could go with it. I don't know, but they're definitely going to address Aino's current state of mind as bad, so to speak. And it's just a matter of how are they going to bring her back to Earth.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a lot more than I would have ever anticipated we were going to talk about this show.
Yeah.
I mean,
to their credit,
it's wild.
To their credit, I always admire ambition, even if it doesn't pan out, and we can say it didn't pan out. But you know, in some ways, you know, I kind of like that better than, you know, some of the alternatives. So
it's still really good.
No, totally.
For me.
I mean, look.
Yeah,
I mean, here's the thing. I'm enjoying Hanebado. It's just that's what scares me because, you know, now that I like Hanebado, now that I'm invested in its characters, like what should have just been like titties and badminton is turning into like this. Is turning into something that we are speaking of in the same sentence as
crazy.
ping pong.
That was a real beat and
unbelievable
switch,
to me.
That first episode.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, like what you said, Jill. Like the fact that we're talking about it speaks to how much we enjoy and respect its ambition. Because you know what sports anime we're not talking about this season? Fucking Harukana Receive.
Yes.
Oh, right.
So,
yeah.
which is,
you know, there is a much worse path Hanebado could have taken, and I am deeply grateful it has decided to take the higher path. It's just whether it can stick the landing or not, I think, is something that still worries me.
Well, next episode will look good, and will already be out by the time the podcast goes up. So, you know, hopefully that'll live up to the hype, because we'll have Nagisa versus the Lips girl. So
yeah. Chopstick hair, or whatever her name is.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The chopsticks in the hair are like the secondary characteristic, the second most interesting thing about her. But
right,
yeah. All right, so that pretty much covers everything. I guess if Iroh were here in his stead, I will just remind everyone: Pokemon Sun and Moon is still airing.
Yeah.
And of course the Tokusatsu shows, which I'm not 100% sure if the two that we were talking about are still running or not. The Kamen Rider Build and
right. I think Build just ended. So
the not Persona 5, the not Persona 5 Super Sentai show. So we're clearly not the experts on that topic, but
right.
Read the posts; they're up there.
Go watch Gaim. It's the best one of them.
Yeah, really, what I keep hearing is I need to watch Ping Pong. So,
oh yeah, everyone needs to watch Ping Pong. I own it on Blu-ray.
I should probably get on that at some point. So,
look, man. I mean, there are a lot of shows you could say are Yuasa's masterpiece. I think Ping Pong is a very good contender for that title.
Yeah. All right. So that'll do it. Let's wrap up with our usual housekeeping. You can read everything we write at theglorioblog.com. Follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can find us on iTunes or wherever else podcasts are sold for the podcast, including this one and Legend of the Glorio Heroes, for all those people keeping up with Iroh and G's coverage of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. So, yep, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and that'll do it. So we'll catch everybody next time.
Later.
てられない街に繰り出すよ